Do you want to stay more focused on the right goals in your life, or even just figure out what the right goals are for you? Do you want clarity? Do you want better work-life balance? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Success Through Failure.
Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. This is your host, Jim Harshaw, bringing you another solo episode. I hope you're having a great summer. I'm recording this in summer, and you may be listening to this in the winter, or who knows when you're listening to this, but I'm getting ready to go to the beach. We're packing up, heading to the beach tomorrow morning. Just a 4-day trip, which kind of is plenty. You know, we got a bunch of family. It's going to be a packed house. So 4 days will be good. So I'm excited for that. Got our bird, it's called a Sea Eagle inflatable kayak. Best purchase I've ever made in my life, maybe outside of my wedding ring for Allie. But the Sea Eagle, I'm just going to give them a plug right now. Sea Eagle is an awesome brand of inflatable kayak. We have... It's, I think, the second one, maybe a third one I've had. I run whitewater, class 5 whitewater in these things. I take them to the beach, surf the big waves in the ocean. You get flipped over. You just surf them in. It's the most fun toy you can ever buy in terms of outdoor toys. Anyway, I digress. Packed that one up, and then actually we found one used online a couple weeks ago. Bought it for $100 just to have a backup. So throwing those in the car, and we're headed to the beach. So looking forward to that. Hoping you're having a great time, great summer, and hopefully getting some chance to check out a little bit, and rest and recuperate, a little R&R, rest and recovery. And anyway, so let's dive into the episode here. I'm going to start with the action item. All right, I'm going to start with the action item, and I never do this. I always do it the other way around. I'm going to give you some actionable stuff at the end too, but this is what I want you to do. After I read this question to you, I want you to pause. I want you to just stop the recording or stop the episode for a minute. Just hit pause for maybe 10 seconds. Okay, I want you to actually answer this question, because you could certainly skip through it. That'd be fine. You can skip it and just kind of keep on rolling. But I really want you to get something out of this episode. So here's the question. What's that one thing that you've always felt that you couldn't do, but you want to? But if you did that, you would have to give up something else. It's either this or that, right? It's either I can be a good parent, or I can be an entrepreneur, or either I can get an MBA or focus on my family, right? Either this or that. Either I can get that promotion and work ridiculous hours to get that promotion, or I can actually stay in balance and make sure I get my workouts in and not just give up everything so I can get that promotion. Either or, right? There's so many of these either or things that we have, questions that we have in our life. And so I want you to hit pause and ask yourself, what is it? What's that one thing that you always felt you couldn't do because it's an either or? So go ahead and hit pause. All right. Hopefully you did that. Hit the pause button. Identified what's that one thing, or maybe it's two, maybe it's three things. And so let's dive in. And we're gonna address that through this episode. A long time ago, I had a window cleaning company. It wasn't that long ago, maybe 12 years ago, I think it was, around 2007. I started a window cleaning company. And at the very beginning, first 6 months or so, I wanted to be out there doing the work too, figuring out so I could teach people and hire crews and train people to do it. So I was out there in the beginning doing the work along with one other employee. Started with just me, and then me and one other guy. And then, I eventually had 10 employees out there, three trucks on the road, and kind of running it from home. But back when I was still doing the work, one of my customers gave me a book, and it was a business book, and it was titled Built to Last: Successful Habits of Visionary Companies. One of the co-authors is Jim Collins, who was the author of Good to Great. And this book sat on my shelf for a couple of years before I actually looked at it. He said, this is a great book. It's been around for a long time. You really got to check this out. And the book is about visionary companies, right? Successful habits of visionary companies. What kind of companies they look at? They looked at, basically they identified criteria that defined a visionary company. And then they went and found companies that fit the bill. So there were companies who had been around for a long time, been around through multiple technology cycles, through multiple economic cycles, boom and bust. And they identified companies like Ford, 3M, American Express, Boeing, Disney, IBM, Nordstrom, Sony, right? So companies who have been around for a long time through the thick and thin. And one of the several habits that they identified of visionary companies is something that we can apply to our own lives. And I'm fascinated by this. And I always challenge myself whenever there's this either or. And one of the habits is the tyranny of the or actually the visionary companies, their habit is the genius of and, okay? Both this and that. And sort of the concept a lot of these visionary companies have, or I guess I should say the ones that don't have this, will say, well, the tyranny of the or is you can invest in the future or you can do well in the short term. Either or, not both. You can either invest in the future or you can do well in the short term. And others said, you can either have low cost or high quality. Can't have both, either or. And these are the types of scenarios that these visionary companies look at and they say, well, how can we do both? How can we do both? Both and, right? And when you look at companies who do this, they tend to, if this is a philosophy, an operating philosophy, they tend to be around for a long time, right? They tend to be really successful companies. And it's the same with people, right? It's the same with people. And I remember when I got accepted to the University of Virginia. UVA is, when I was in school, it was the number one public school in the country. It's actually like number 2 or number 3 right now. So I probably set it back a couple of notches whenever I went there. But it was the number one public school in the country. And, just a prestigious academic institution. And here I am, redneck from Western Pennsylvania, country boy. No one in my family had ever gone to college before. And, blue collars, they come going to this sort of white collar school. And I remember thinking, man, I got to fit in, right? I can't be this Pittsburgh kid with this Pittsburgh accent going to UVA. I either had to be the redneck from Western Pennsylvania or the smart kid at this elite school. And I felt like it was this either or, right? So I tried to fit in, like I tried to adapt, right? I lost my Western Pennsylvania accent and just tried to fit in, right? And maybe that's part of youth is that trying to fit in. But I've since come to accept both and, right? You can be the redneck from Western Pennsylvania, the country boy, and you can go to this great academic institution. And we live by this false dichotomy, this believing that there's an either or versus the both and, right? I can be a great dad or a great businessman. I can't do both, right? See, there's plenty of perfect examples out there of amazing entrepreneurs who have figured out how to live by the both and, right? Seth Goldman, who I interviewed back in episode 15, which is way back in the archives. You won't be able to find that on iTunes. iTunes only goes back 100 episodes. That's probably with most, I think, podcast platforms. But if you go to jimharshawjr.com/15, you'll find it there. But episode 15, Seth Goldman, this guy's an amazing entrepreneur, and he focuses on his family, and he works out a lot, right? So it's like there's this either or both and, right? He's a great father, he's a great businessman, and he works out a lot, and he's fit, right? He doesn't live by that false dichotomy of either or. He's a both and man, right? Richard Branson, right? This guy, like, you can either be a great entrepreneur, world class, one of the probably one of the greatest entrepreneurs ever, owns hundreds of companies all around the world with hundreds of thousands of employees. And you can either do that or you can live this like awesome, fun life of adventure, right? Either or, and take these great vacations, right? Either or. No, both and. You can live this life that you think that is impossible, right? I'll use another great example. It's a personal example to me. My late brother-in-law, Steve Nicotra, who tragically passed away over the holidays last year, probably just prior to the holidays. But he lived it in multiple ways. He was this high-powered executive, CFO of a large real estate firm downtown Pittsburgh, and he didn't seek that power or influence. Right? Either you can be a high-powered executive, or you can be this kind, gentle, non-power seeking person, but you can't have both, right? Well, he did. He was this high-powered, influential executive, but man, he was humble. He didn't seek out the power. He kept getting promoted, even though he didn't want promoted. His boss kept nudging him to take the next promotion, and the next promotion, and the next promotion. And before you know it, he's a CFO. May have been in line to be the president, but he was both and. He wasn't either this or that, right? He was this intelligent, white-collar, successful guy. On the flip side, he was this blue-collar dude who worked with his hands all weekend. He was a craftsman, drove an old beat-up pickup truck on the weekends, and even on Fridays to work, he'd drive his old pickup truck to work. But he was both, right? Blue-collar, white-collar, both and, right? High-powered, influential, but also blue-collar, just humble guy, want to just be home on the weekends, right? Both and. Embrace who you are. Think about what part of you that you're holding in. What part of you are you holding back? What part of you are you saying, I can either do this or I can do that. I can't do both. Do you both want to get your MBA and stay balanced at home? Well, guess what? A client of mine, Matt, just did that. He just finished up got his MBA at the Wharton School at University of Pennsylvania, no less. And we saw him through it. He's one of my clients, and through the Reveal Your Path program, right? We helped him maintain balance while also getting his MBA. Do you want to be like an entrepreneur? Or maybe you want to just sort of dedicate your life to coaching the sport that you love and like lifting up kids and helping them out? Well, guess what? One of my clients, Dr. Isaac Greeley, episode 156, I actually interviewed him. He does that. This guy's my hero. He lives this amazing life, and man, he's busy, but he's fulfilled, and he's living out the both and, right? He exemplifies it. And there's plenty of examples out there. So I want you to break out of the either or thinking and start living by the both and thinking. And how do you do that? Well, here's one way. You cultivate confidence in who you are. Find ways to remind yourself of, number one, your successes. Number two, all the compliments that you've received over the years. Number three, reasons why you can succeed. You have these unfair advantages. Check out episode 202. I talk about the yeah, but syndrome. Yeah, but I can't get my MBA and be a family man, right? There's that yeah, but syndrome, right? So find ways to remind yourself of these things, of your successes, of the reasons why you can succeed, of the compliments others have given you, right? Feed that stuff into your mind to help overcome that self-doubt. Here's another one. Number two is find other people who have done it. Find other people who have done both. Both of those things that you want to accomplish. Find other people who have done it. Have coffee with them. Have a conversation with them. Reach out to them. Here's the third one. Read about people who have done it. Or listen to podcasts about it, or listen to books about them. I've got plenty of them on this podcast. I just talked about one there, 156 with Seth. 156 with Isaac, and in episode 15 with Seth Goldman. Read about people, listen about people who have done it, who are living it out. And here's the fourth one. Create your own version of it. You don't need a role model because you are you. That's truer than true. There's no one alive who is youer than you. That's a Dr. Seuss quote. If you didn't get that one, if you have kids, you probably read that book. But there's nobody else who's just like you, right? Create your own version. All you need to know is that it's possible. Then, when you identify what that thing is, hopefully you did that in the beginning of the episode here. You hit the pause button. Now, ask yourself this: what if I had to? What if hypothetically I had to do this? What would I do? How would I do it? And just see what answers come up. And you may just surprise yourself if you start thinking about, man, I have to do this, right? In episode 197, I talk about your 10-year goals, identifying your 10-year goals and going, okay, how do I attain those? What if I had to attain those in 6 months? It talks about expanding your mindset into living and making choices based off of a different way of thinking. Episode 195, I talk about finding time. How do you create the time for this? Because I know that's probably one of the things holding you back is the time. I don't have time. Episode 195, I talk about finding time. And remember, you may not have to go all in, right? You may not have to go all in right now on getting the thing that you want to get or doing the thing you want to do. You can simply prototype. Episode 124, I interviewed Bill Burnett, and I know I'm throwing a bunch of these episodes at you. You can grab them all in the action plan. You don't have to try to memorize all these, but if you go to jimharshawjr.com/action, you can get a list of all these episodes I'm giving you right now. But episode 124 with Bill Burnett, he's a Stanford professor design professor who wrote a book. He co-wrote a book called Designing Your Life. Fantastic book. I read it multiple times, just a lot of great exercises, real practical, because I like that kind of stuff. You probably listen to this podcast because you like practical, actionable stuff too. And but anyway, episode 124, he talks about prototyping, right? You don't have to go all in if you want to try to do something, or, again, just using the examples I've already used so far is like the MBA, right? If you want to get your MBA, you don't have to go all in, right? Maybe take one class at the community college, right? See how that works in your life. Find ways to prototype, find ways to go small, like dip your toe in and see if it works, right? If you want to start a business, maybe you just go have a conversation with your local small business development center. If you want to run a marathon, maybe just run a 10K and see if you can do that, but also, make sure you're investing enough time with your family or at work, right? Just take one step, one action. You don't need to see the whole way down the path. And I've said this before. You can drive from New York City to Los Angeles seeing like 100 or 200 feet in front of you with the headlights. You don't have to see the whole way down the path. Take that first step. When you take that first step, you're going to be able to see one step further down the path. So next time you catch yourself thinking, I can either have this or that, challenge yourself to explore ways to have both. If you got any value out of this episode, please give it a share. Actually, iTunes yanked me off of iTunes, and it happened to a bunch of podcasts not long back. Yanked me off of iTunes for a couple of weeks until I got some things cleaned up just in the metadata that I submit that goes through my feed into iTunes every week. Had they changed their standards. And anyway, it took me a little while to get that cleaned up. So I got yanked off iTunes, lost a bunch of listeners, lost out on a bunch of growth here in the last few weeks or month or so. So if you can, give it a share. If you love this episode 207, jimharshawjr.com/207, send somebody a text, send out a tweet, say, hey, check out episode 207, or you can go to jimharshawjr.com/share, and you can just quickly and easily share on social media from any of the buttons there. So thank you for doing that. If you haven't left a rating or review on iTunes, those help as well. So I appreciate the ratings and the reviews, the shares. I just appreciate you being here listening and trusting me with this time in your day. So thank you for listening. And as always, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success.